Good morning, Frank. I don't seem to hear anybody else chatting. I hope my audio is working.
I can hear you now.
I can hear you too. Thank you.
Good.
I can hear you, Jim.
I can
Great.
hear
Well,
you.
good. Holly, hi.
Good morning, Dale. Can't hear you, Dale.
You've got his mute on.
There, can you hear me now?
100%, Dale. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Well, dealing with the frustration of this damn Zoom business, but seems to be working now, and with the help I've gotten, so I hope I can do it again next time.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, Dale. Good to see you.
Good morning. Jim, I appreciate your help on figuring out how to get to the website and all that when you call me.
Anytime. It's not working completely smoothly for me either.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting it there. Just practice will make perfect.
Can everyone see the agenda on my screen?
I can.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't understand what you said, but I heard your voice.
And Frank, looks like we will be ready to go at 10 o'clock.
Perfect. What have we got? About 3 minutes yet?
Yes, that is correct.
Bill, is your camera available?
It sure is.
Good. Good morning. Good morning.
How are you? Yeah.
I'm good. Thank you, sir. Mike, is yours camera available as well?
Yeah, let me check and see if I can get it up. And can you see me?
Uh, let's see.
I can.
There
Okay.
you are. It is 10 a.m. On June 28th, 2024, and this meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is called to order. Make sure when you speak, please say your name and the organization you're with. We're going to establish a quorum right now. Mr. Nations, are you on?
I'm here and I'm on.
Fantastic. Mr. Firebrand?
Present.
Commissioner Conway,
I am here.
Commissioner Ballard.
Here, sir.
We have a quorum. We can move forward. Second thing on the agenda, I'd like to introduce or reintroduce to some of you our new AG as representative, Rick Zeiss. Rick, do you want to say something? Do we have Rick here? We do not appear to have our AG on the line. Would Holly, would you check to see what's going on?
Yes, I'll do that. And Chris, are you pinging Rick?
No, I haven't. I can't chat with him.
There is Rick. We don't see you or hear you.
Yeah, I don't.
Mr. Zeiss. One more moment while we get our AAG online with us. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, Chairman Tharwell, this is Administrator Schmidt. He may be having some technical issues too. Maybe trying to join.
I see him now.
Okay. There you go.
Mr. Zeiss. You no voice, so we don't hear you. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Yes.
I just introduced you. Some will know you and some will not. You want to say a few words?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rick Zeiss from the Attorney General's office. I represented oil and gas maybe 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. My caseload got a little heavy, so I was pulled off, and I am back now. I am a licensed attorney, state of Arizona. I've been with the Attorney General's office since 2014, and looking forward to working with Oil and Gas Commission again.
Fantastic. Moving on to item 2 on the agenda. Item 3, excuse me, plugging wells. Administrator Schmidt, do you want to go through this?
Yeah, I will go through items A through E on agenda item 3. Good morning, commissioners. Christopher Schmidt, and AZOGCC administrator. With respect to item 3A, plugging wells, this would be with respect to the initial state grant and then the upcoming pending formula grant. Recently, as far as the update, we haven't changed the amount of wells that we have plugged since the last update, but we've actually plugged 1 well so far, and we are in the process of scheduling the plugging, active plugging of about 40 wells that we have on our list here in the next 30 to 60 days. So we're looking forward to that and taking care of some of these orphaned oil and gas wells, and hopefully getting out there to protect the environment, the public health, and clean up some of these things and change some of their status from kind of open and orphan to closed. Is there any questions about any of that from any of the commissioners or anybody online?
I have a question. Have there been any issues with the surface and any remediation of surface areas that have been needed to be done so far?
No, I don't anticipate we're going to have much restoration or reclamation or remediation of any of these sites. All of our sampling indicates there's no issues so far. As we investigate them and look into them, the only restoration, quote unquote, we would need is probably where a rig would make a footprint, for plugging a well, but that's about it. And mostly those workover service companies actually carry their own Baker tanks and really keep everything housed in tanks and stuff. And so very little fluids will end up being on the ground or anything during plugging project. But any restoration is probably going to only be limited to what the rig footprint would be, So I think we're going to be in really good shape there.
Good. Chairman Thorwald, again, that's good. There is, so far in all of the sites that we've found, there hasn't been any surface disturbances or anything.
No.
Great.
No,
Great.
no, nothing that causes us for any alarm or anything like that. It's been pretty benign as far as, there's some sites where there's maybe a few pieces of pipe sitting on there or some junk and some trash that we have to clean up, but nothing of any kind of things to kind of worry us or get cause for any kind of alarm. We do have to do cultural assessments, and we do have to, follow the Endangered Species Act and doing all of those things ahead of that. So prior to disturbing the land, so that is prior to allowing rigs to come onto site and to plug those wells. So we do have to do a lot of that work, and most of that's been done on the wells that we are going to plug. But then we still have some more sites that we need to do those on. So we're out in front of the rigs ahead doing those cultural type assessments and all of those things. And so we are going to be careful about disturbing any kind of endangered species like cactus or some other particular tree that might be an endangered species that's in the way of, the rig coming in, and any kind of damage, quote unquote, or disturbance of those areas right within the rig footprint will restore back to the way they were. So we'll either do replanting or we'll either move plants and then put them back in place. So we are going to be very careful about how we deal with getting onto the sites and how we're working on those.
Chairman Thorwald again. Where have most of these wells been? Have they been equally divided between state land, private land, O'Neill land? Where have they been that we found so far?
Okay, most of them are up in the Northeast, as probably you can anticipate, since that's where most of the activity has been. I'd say we had about 18 wells on O'Neill lands. I think we're down to plugging on those lands probably 7 or 8 right now. It's possible we could do more, but 7 or 8 wells that we're going to plug on O'Neill lands. State lands, I think we have a handful on state lands, so maybe 5 or 10. And I could get you maybe some updated numbers, but we have 40 wells all in general. Most of the wells are on private lands, so like ranch land or whatever, but some are on state. And like I said, a handful on the O'Neill lands as well. So 40 in all. Probably I would say the split is probably like 7 or 8 on O'Neill that we'll plug. Maybe 5 or 10 tops on state lands, and then the rest would be on private lands or other type of land.
Any questions from the commission? While we're at this, does state land have any questions?
No, we don't. Thank you. David Haig, State Land Department.
Hearing none, let's move on to the next item.
Okay, item B is software updates. So this would be related to the relational database that we're putting together, or that actually our contractors putting together. It's the GWPC database. There's really no new updates on it. Basically, they finished their first phase of the project. We're just waiting to go ahead and award them the formula grant monies to go ahead and continue on to enhance that database. But we also have a University of Arizona who is putting together a lot of the file information into electronic format so that we can upload it into that database. So we're just waiting on them to finish the first upload, which should be in about another few weeks, and we should have that upload ready to go. And then we can fully test the software and get the contractor to work on the next phase of the project, which is to do some other enhancements, permitting module, also getting the second upload of the data in from our files. So some things like that. So stay tuned, and we'll keep you abreast of things as that progresses. But that's kind of where we are. We're in the end of the fiscal year right now, just getting ready to get started on issuing POs and work scopes to the contractors to get that ball rolling in that phase of the project.
Chairman Thorwald, a quick
Mhm.
question on this.
Sure.
Will that make will the updates in the software, the changes in there, make it easier for stakeholders and for the public to be able to see what's going on with, and that this relates to our next item, which is item C on the agenda as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. Yes. Our ultimate goal is to be able to have all of the data that we collect and have available for public consumption in one way or another on our website, either in a map or some kind of a way that they can download it, or some kind of a way the data could be exported to them, whether it's through shapefiles or something like that. So when there's requests in asking for that kind of information, yes, we do anticipate ultimately making that all available to the public in some way, shape, or form. So we're kind of taking those steps right now, and that's kind of what the second step is to perform the database enhancements, and then also start looking at how we're going to generate it to be public facing in the end, and what that's going to look like.
Chairman Thorwald again. Will this have data from other entities within that? For instance, the Geologic Survey, Land Department. Will it all be able to be accessed from a single location, or how will that work? Are we connecting any data?
Right now, there's not a plan to connect to, like, let's say ASLD databases or anything like that right now, but it is potentially accessible, provided we could give them access. The same thing, and if we make it public facing, then it would be accessible through the public facing aspect, which would be the website, or maps that we generate on the website with the data, or any of that kind of thing, files that could be available for download or export. But right now, we're just trying to work through the process of getting the software up and running and working, and then looking at what it looks like in the public facing. And then ultimately, again, that's another step, would be to try to see how that data can be shared, not only internally within ADEQ and with the commission, but with other potential departments as well, or state agencies. So that would be something that we would look at in the end as well.
Again, Chairman Thorwald, council members, do you have any questions? Hearing none, move on to the next item, C.
Okay, item C, 3C is website updates. If you haven't been to the website recently, I would encourage you to go, because the new website was launched, I believe, last week. And so we do have the new website up and running. We are in the process of looking at the website content and being able to make any changes and updates to content. So if you do not see something on there, commissioners, that like maybe you may be looking for your bios or something like that, we're in the process of working with our team to be able to update the content. We wanted to get the site live and loaded to make sure that it was up and running, and then we are going to update content and really look at if there's any kind of broken links or things like that that we need to take care of. But right now it is live, and so you can see the new look of it. And I think it's going to be a good site in the end when we are able to use the data that we get to share up there, and then also a lot of the content that we are planning to try to put up there as well.
This is Commissioner Nations. I have a question about this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Commissioner.
I was approached by a constituent of our commission that he was trying to locate past the minutes of past meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he used to be able to do it, but he wasn't able to now. So what do you suggest about that?
Well, all our meetings right now are videoed and they're recorded, and so we make those recordings available on the website.
He was talking about prior meetings. before we started to video them and record them.
Yeah, all of the minutes to any meetings or recordings of any meetings are all up on, well, they're all up on the website. So as long as we've been doing it, as far as I've seen, going back quite a ways, are all still on the website.
What about prior to your tenure?
Yes, even before I joined. Yes, yeah,
okay.
way before. Yeah, so I can't tell you exactly right now how many. I'm kind of looking to see how many years back it would go, but yeah, it was quite a while.
Is
But
there a link? Is there a link in the website to go
There
back to
should be,
those?
yes, there should be. All of the content that we had on the website should have been moved over to the new website. But if for some reason the link doesn't work or anything, we'll check it out and make sure that it is working and that it can be accessed. But yes, all of those meeting minutes were up there on the old site and would have been transferred over to the new website.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioners, any questions on this for our administrator on this?
Well, this is Commissioner Ballard. I just have a comment. I have had a chance to take a look at the new website. It looks pretty nice. Definitely an upgrade in our public facing communications. I haven't tried all the links. I'll try some more as I move forward, but I will note there is a place on the new site to go back to the old site if for some reason you're more familiar with that and that's where something specific is that you want to link to. So that's always a fallback. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Ballard. That is true. Yes, we do have the old site is going to be live. That you can go to the old site for about the next 30 days, and then that site will go away for good. But we're going to ensure that everything's been moved over. And to come back to your comment, Commissioner Nations, about the timeline on the minutes, they go back to all the way to what I see January of 2011. So that's the first time I've seen them that I see them posted on the website. Any other minutes would be in our paper files. So ultimately, all of those files should hopefully, we're going to be scanning in a lot of those files. And so any of the missing stuff that would go back even further should hopefully be in electronic format and available as well. So any written minutes that were before the 2011 date that I see on our website would hopefully be available as well. So,
yeah, well, that's good to hear. Now, so if somebody wants to look at meetings for 10 years ago, let's say, or more, that would be in the paper files.
Well, 10 years would take us back to 2014, so that would be on the website as well. I should say 2011. They go back to 2011, and if you go back before that, all they would have to do is reach out and make a records request with us, and we could try to chase that down. Right now, all of our files are with the University of Arizona, so because they're doing they're looking through those on the Orphan Well program, and so they're working with all those files, and ultimately all of those paper files will be scanned in over the next probably 6 months to a year. And then we'll have everything available electronically. But if somebody is interested in looking at something from beyond 2011, before that date, January 2011, they could reach out to us through a records request on the ADQ site or on the AZOGCC website. They'll be ported over to the form where they can fill out a records request, and then we can go search that out and see if we can find those minutes and get a copy of those in the meantime.
Good. Well, thanks for that explanation.
Sure. Any other questions on website? Okay. Then I will move on to item 3D, which is
just Chairman Thorwald. I do have a couple comments. Yeah. I noticed under the links that we don't have one for AZOGCC or the Groundwater Protection Council that we should add in.
Yeah. Okay.
if you can move on to the next item,
Okay.
if we don't have any other questions.
Yep. Next item will be grant process 3D, which is the formula grant and the initial state grant. In the plugging agenda item that I went over, we are plugging wells under the initial state grant. We received our new award for the initial grant back in February. We are using those monies to continue on with site investigation and plugging of all of the orphan wells using those monies. And then also recently we have been awarded the formula grant monies. So June 26th, actually just only a couple days ago, we were awarded the formula grant, which was a $4.87 million award. And those monies will also go to all of those kinds of phases of the project that are similar to the work we're doing in the initial grant. So some site investigation, but mostly plugging of wells. So a lot of that money will be devoted to plugging wells. And then the subrecipients who are U of A and GWPC will be continuing to work on the database and the electronic files information, and working on, and U of A will be working in some other areas to do some investigative work using some drone magnetometry and some other technologies. But we now have both grants now awarded to us, and we're ready to use those monies to continue on the work that we're doing with plugging wells and the associated restoration and reclamation of those sites.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for our administrator on that? Hearing none, let's move on to E.
Okay, E is 3E's rule changes is we are working internally to do rule changes. AAC 12-7, which is our oil and gas rule. We are working through the comments on the GERC report that we submitted to GERC last year, and working through all of those comments and changes to the rule in those areas on the report. But then also, any other areas that we needed to address as well, or for harmonization of the rules between each section, and then also clarifying some language and some other things. And then at some point pretty soon, we will be ready to probably share some of those things with the commissioners, so you can have some input as to some of the changes that we've kind of put in there, and then of course add anything else that you may consider to be important, or some things we need to consider making changes on. And so we're getting through that. I think we've worked through a fair amount of the rules so far, but we still have a little ways to go. But hopefully in the next month or so, we should be able to pass along some of those changes for review and comment.
Any other questions for our administrator on item E? I have a couple quick ones myself for on the changes.
Yeah.
Are we working on harmonizing those rules with DEQ, with land, and with DWR?
Yeah, we're going to look at some of those things to see where some of the common ground is, and some of where the differences are, and try to work those into the rule changes. So we'll take a look at, and we may have to contact state land to talk through some of the things there and some of the things with them. But we are taking a look at that as we're going through that, to see where we have to have those conversations and where some of that harmonization may need to occur. So we're kind of trying to get the to-do list and the action items first, and then kind of go back and talk to like ASLD or ADWR or our other water quality, or anybody else that we might need to touch base with. Sure.
Any other questions for this item? Moving on to item 4, Arizona State Land Department, federal royalty rates and federal bonds amounts. We're going to decided not to discuss this today. We're going to postpone it to a future meeting where we will have it on the agenda. Moving on to item 5. Any questions on that regarding that postponement on item 4? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, bond amounts related to restoration and reclamation of land. This is a subject I wanted to, it ties into those rule changes as well that we mentioned. in harmonization and coordination of what we're doing with state land and others to make sure everything is there's not double charges for people, and that we cover what is necessary to ensure that restoration of land or whatever is necessary to do after the site is no longer productive. So with that, the state, what is state land doing with regard to this? David?
It's David Haig with State Land Department, Mineral Section Manager. We're actually not doing, we haven't done much in the past. We haven't had any producing oil and gas wells. We're starting to see that now. Finally, are seeing some production. Typically, if it was a mine or something like that, we would just take whatever's not covered by the kind of governing agency, like Oil and Gas Commission for this. Anything that's not covered, like removal of roads and pads, drill pads and things like that, pipelines. We would bond for that, to cover the difference between the cost to remove it in your bonds, for example.
Mr. Dixon, do you have anything you want to add to that at state land?
Yeah, no, I think David covered that pretty well. In the past, we've never really required anybody to submit a bond for any of the oil and gas stuff. So.
Okay. Is there anything that anybody else besides the two of you that our team at Oil and Gas should be communicating with regard to these items?
I think just maybe, I don't know, good question.
Well, in other words, with regard to coordination and harmonization of rules on bond amounts and the general reclamation of land that applies to state land, besides you and Joe, is there anybody else that the Oil and Gas Commission should also be coordinating with there at state land?
Maybe Elizabeth Logan, Assistant Director of Natural Resources. She's in charge of the minerals and water portion of it. So Elizabeth, I think, would be a good person to contact as well.
What was that name again?
Elizabeth Logan, Logan.
Council members, staff, do you have any questions? Where staff, Administrator Schmidt, where are we in this process right now with regard to the bond amounts, the restoration, and how that ties into the rule process that we're redoing?
Well, we're looking as we're going through the rule and making suggested changes to the bond amounts. Right now, we're looking at our rule and seeing about the bond amounts to cover plugging and maybe potential reclamation on our end, and how that works for us. But then also we would need to just kind of have a conversation with Joe and David and maybe Elizabeth about, on that end, how that affects what they're doing. Would they stay the same course and take a look at what we're doing and kind of saying, okay, well, we're going to go off of what you're doing, or we'll do something on our own here to kind of either piggyback on that or whatever they're capable or whatever they're doing within their rules, to say, if it's something that may cover, have some monies to cover even in addition to that. So we're looking at our bond amounts to make sure that we can, adequately cover when they're called in to plug the well, but then also do some surface reclamation or restoration. And then we can kind of reach out to like ASLD and kind of see, here's kind of what we're thinking about doing our end. How does that fit in then with you? So we would have to have those conversations right after we kind of go through our stuff.
Commissioners, any suggestions or thoughts along on this item that we may have overlooked or that you think need to be included in our review?
Well, this is Commissioner Ballard. Just a quick comment. It seems like it would be simpler if the bond amount obtained or pertaining to the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission was sufficient to satisfy the needs of state lands and the anticipated cost to both, plug the well and to restore the site.
Right.
I don't know how complicated it would be to calculate that amount or determine what the amount would be, but it sure would be simpler than getting two separate bonds.
Right. Yes, Commissioner Ballard, I would agree. And so that's kind of what we're looking at, and that's what we want to kind of try to consider.
Commissioner Nations, it looked like you might have had a comment on that. Any thoughts?
Well, I probably irrelevant, but I've heard complaints about the restoration of the coal mine on Black Mesa, Navajo and Hopi lands. I know that we have no responsibility there because those are federal options. But do you have any suggestions about that? Is there any way we should be concerned about that restoration of lands other than just oil and gas wells?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Administrator Schmidt.
No, I'm okay. I yield.
Since it's we have no authority over those, there's nothing we could do about that anyway. So it's a moot point for us.
I admitted that from the beginning, but I just wanted to point it out.
Commissioners. Commissioner Nations. I would just kind of echo, right? Since we have no authority or we can't do really anything about that. But we can take some of the lessons learned or what we're hearing, and we can kind of try to apply that to make sure if there is kind of concerns or issues like what may be happening there, then we want to take that into consideration when we're thinking about how we're moving forward in things that we do have some level of control or authority over. So even though we can't do something directly, we could always try to mitigate any future things that we do have some control over.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Commissioner Conway, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Firebrand, Commissioner Firebrand.
I'm good.
Okay, good. Then let us move on to the next item. Item number 6, activities of the AZOGC, Interstate Oil and Gas Commission, regarding pore space. We as commissioners, again, this is Chairman Thorwald. As you know, we had submitted some legislation on pore space during this last session, which the legislature did not do anything with. And we'd done some of that in coordination with the Arizona ASU on that and DEQ. However, since then and at the same time, the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact has a separate body that has been looking at, and it's made up of a very large number of people from the different states. And I'm on one of the subcommittees on this, looking at each aspect of the pore space, what pore space is, what legislation is, what the pressure is on a CO2 front. Does the CO2 how long will it be before it turns into something that is hard? When does it the state take over or some other entity on this, or do they? So they will have a thorough and at least they hope they will. We hope we will by November, a thorough package with draft legislation for the states, draft communications, and all of other kinds of documents that are available to pass out to the states. So if anybody has any questions on that, let me know. Just ask me right now. And if anybody, any of the commissioners want to be involved in any of those subcommittees, let me know and I can connect you. Is there any questions about that? Hearing none, let's move on to item 7. One other quick note, I don't think there'll be a problem with this, but our administrator will have to leave at 11:30. I think we'll be done long before that, but even if he does, we can continue on. Item 7, new commissioner duties, responsibilities, and conflicts of interest. This, I want to make sure that Mr. Ballard, our new commissioner, is aware of these things, and that it'll be a refresher for some of the rest of us. I'm going to turn this over to Rick Zeiss, our AAG, to talk about this a bit.
Oh, just real quickly, your duty as a commissioner is to evaluate information coming in regards to issuing of permits. The biggest problem I see, two big problems I see, are your conflicts of interest. You cannot become interested or become involved in any type of activity where you are coming to the commission for approval without first discussing the possible conflicts of interest with the commission. I would also urge Chairman Thorwald to schedule an executive session to discuss open meeting law, so that we discuss more of the issues and duties of a commissioner, including open meeting law and communication, for a future meeting. And with that, I will return it to Commissioner Thorwald.
Commissioner Ballard, do you have any questions for AAG?
No, this is Commissioner Valerie. No, not at this time. I think a session, an executive session on a future agenda would be most educational for all of us. And I would certainly support that as a useful learning tool for me, and like you say, maybe review for everybody.
Well, that would be.
I look forward to a presentation. I look forward to doing a presentation. Thank you.
That for future agenda items on item 12, staff, if you'll just add that in when we get there. Any questions on this? Moving on to item 8, and the agenda says separate bank account with Arizona Department of Administration, and that is probably a misnomer. It probably should have just said separate account. What I'm doing under Miziel, he had suggested that we have some type of separate something separate from DEQ. So I've been exploring that with ADOA, and they're putting me in touch with the GAO to talk about this, and I'll bring this up at future meetings. And any questions? Does anybody think it would be better if we were able to have a line item on this? Hearing no comments, let's just move on to the next one then. This is the timing of the primacy for oil and gas. And the reason I wanted this on the agenda was that depending on when we have to submit separate legislation to the state to bring us in line with what DEQ has done, and we have to change our rules to do this as well. And depending on when primacy is obtained by the state, we will be able to move these things over if we have all of these things in place. But timing is important. If we submit something this year, it will be on next legislative session, which means it will not be available to us till the end of the year. If we wait till through this legislative session, it's 2 years out. Excuse me. Sorry, I think I had a frog in my throat, or maybe even an elephant. Anyway, so that we have Dan Reeder with us, who can talk a little about that. So the idea is to help us as a commission develop our timetable for when we need to have these items in place to be able to move forward so that we can move primacy for certain well categories into oil and gas from DEQ. Mr. Reader, are you here available?
Yeah, I'm here, Chairman Thorwald. I apologize, my camera's not working, but evidently my mic's working okay.
Sounds good. If you could fill us in on where DEQ is on primacy.
Yeah, we're actually pretty far along. You know, we had our rules finalized and adopted in September of 2022. Really, that's the first step in gaining primacy from EPA, the federal program. So there are actually 5 components of the UIC application, and that involves like a program description, which is essentially a work plan, and how to run the program. There's a formal governor letter, giving ADQ full authority to regulate the program. There's also an attorney general statement that really clarifies that our statutes and regulations meet meet all the safe drinking water requirements, for their federal UIC programs. So there's a stringency requirement for adopting those rules. And then there's a memorandum agreement between the state ADQ and the EPA Region 9. And then we also need to submit all our relevant state statutes and regulations. And then there needs to be a formal public participation process. So with all that said, we actually submitted our primacy application to EP Region 9 back in March, a few months ago. We recently received formal comments from Region 9, and so we're in the process of, resolving their comments, and we're going to meet with them next week to go over some of their comments they had on the Attorney General statement. And then once we get those finalized and approved by Region 9, we will submit the application package to, or Region 9 will submit the application package to EPA headquarters. Now we expect that process to take anywhere from 9 to 12 months before they finally approve our primacy application. So with that said, hopefully we'll have primacy about a year from now.
Mr. Reader, you've provided oil and gas and DEQ the various changes that were required by EPA and the legislation and the rules and the everything that was needed in the past. So I think that was about a year ago. Mm-hmm. Has there been any substantial changes or in any of those documents since then, or would it be better for you to submit a new package of what all that is to us so that we could start working on getting those things in place from a rule and the statutory process so we can get them into the next legislation?
Yeah, I can Chairman Thorwald, I can certainly make sure that you have the most recent version, and that would be the Secretary of State, published rules. But I'll make sure you have that, so you'll have the final rules.
Fantastic. Administrator Schmidt, who on our staff should that go to? Should it go to you, to Heather, to who on the staff should it go to?
It could come to me and I could forward it on, or yeah, that's fine.
Does that work for you, Mr. Reader?
Yeah. I'll send it over to Chris, and then so he'll have the final Secretary of State regulations.
Yeah, and we can distribute it out. Yep.
Fantastic. That is there any questions on this as far as our timing from the commissioners? Does everybody agree, or I don't think we need a vote on this, but that we should get started on this process so that a year from now we will be able to be closer to it versus a couple years out?
I agree with that. Let's put it on a high priority.
Commissioner Ballard?
Well, I certainly agree with moving forward as fast as possible. I'm starting at a fairly low level of information. I don't want to take too much time, but what classes of UIC wells are we actually applying for primacy for? Just class 2 or all through class 6?
Mr. Reader, as I recall, we're getting that in all for the DEQ is getting it in all categories, and we would be just taking over the ones that are related to oil and gas.
Yeah, that's correct. Our primacy application includes all 6 well classifications. Now, class 4 wells will be strictly prohibited in Arizona, except for any remediation at RCRA CERCLA sites.
Right, absolutely. So
we would primarily, of course, be concerned with the class 2 applications.
Mm-hmm. And we also handle the geothermal and that type of thing as well.
That's true.
So, and it would be also related to CO2 wells, hydrogen, that type of thing, hydrogen storage. So, is there any other questions or discussion in this area?
Chairman Thorold, I have a quick comment. This is the Rick Zeise, Attorney General's office. You were not asking for a vote in regards to your comments and requesting input from the various board members. You were merely requesting input, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments? Moving on to item 10. This is the chairman's report. We have produced water on this area, and we've brought this topic up before, and I just wanted to let everybody know that we are still discussing this along with the underground injection of the produced water and how we can go about doing that. And this was more of a just to let you all know that we're still working on that. Is there any questions regarding that?
This is Commissioner Nations on that. What's the current thinking about generating hydrogen from these formation waters?
There's just been general discussion about it. There has been nothing that has been decided with respect to that. Part of that is being discussed with the New Mexico Produced Water Consortium, and that's there, and the federal government and the other states that are involved with the consortium besides ourselves, and how that might work, not just here in Arizona but around the country.
And we haven't seen that being done anywhere in the country, like in the Gulf Coast.
Not that I know of at this moment. There may be, but I have not heard about anything on it yet.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Well, then let's move on to item 11, call to the public. We are on YouTube, and it may take a minute or two for somebody to call in, so let's give it a moment. This is the time for the public to be able to talk to the commission. We do have time limits on this, but
Hey, Frank, this is Joe Dixon. We had a couple of email exchanges with Keenan Murray there over the past week about the federal royalty.
Mr. Dixon, just for the record, I know who you are and where you are, but announce who you're representing.
Oh, just in this case, kind of myself here, but mostly the state land department here too. But yeah, one of the things Keenan had passed along to me, Keenan Murray, he's the program lead for oil and gas there at the BLM Arizona State office there. He said right now they only have 3 leases, oil and gas leases in all of Arizona, and all 3 of those are on some kind of administrative hold for additional NEPA analysis. So the overall impact of any of those changes here in Arizona is pretty minimal. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. I thought they probably had more than that, but he said that's all they got.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on the call or a member of the public that wishes to address the council? or the commission rather. Hearing none, let's move on to item 12, request for future agenda items. Obviously, we have one request already, so if we could add that in. Commissioners, do you have anything that you would like to see on the agenda as we move for our next meeting? I would ask this, do we have, when do we anticipate those rules to be changes, drafts to go out to the commissioners? What I'm wondering about is if this is something we want on the agenda for our next meeting or the meeting after that for the commissioners.
Commissioner Thorwald, this is Administrator Schmidt. I would say probably for the meeting right after that. We're probably about another month or so away from wrapping things up on maybe on our end a bit, and taking a look at things to before we pass it on. We want to kind of pass it on in a format that's, you know, easily able to go through with the commissioners and stuff. So yeah, I think we could probably agenda maybe potentially that for the meeting after the next one.
Couldn't we also do the open meeting law and executive session at the next
And
meeting?
I will have I have on the agenda for the next meeting, which is in August, to do the open meeting law executive session.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioners, again, any thoughts, anything that you think should be on the agenda? Hearing nothing, let's move on to item 14. But before we move on, I just want to go back to one other item, and that was item 9. And I will just want to thank Dan Reeder for his being here and talking with us. And I should have done it back then, and I didn't. So Dan, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Commissioner Thorwald. More than happy to participate.
Number 14, adjournment. It is now approximately 10:55 a.m. Let's see, I'll be more precise here. 10:53 a.m. And this meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is concluded. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Weekend.
Bye, everyone.